Hi, I'm August Keller, and this is my review of Bad Boys Ride or Die. So, I think the best way to summarize this movie is to just call it overstuffed and erratic. Um, I liked it in spurts. There are things about it I liked. There were moments I liked, full sequences I liked, but there was also, as a whole, I found it pretty tiresome. Um, I find this to be the case with a lot of these sequels. Once you're like four movies into a franchise, there's just so much baggage. There's all these characters that we've collected along the way that you know they seem to want to give time to, but they just don't really serve the narrative anymore. Um, I mean, this movie is about Martin Lawrence and Will Smith at its core, and it would be nice to focus on those two and maybe the conflict, the external conflict, usually in the form of a villain, and their internal conflicts. Um, and that's all there, but there's also all this other stuff going on. There's their sidekick, their sidekicks with and then there's the all the other higher ups in the law enforcement, and there's their families and their children, and they all have these their own scenes. Some of them, they all have their own things going on. The script feels the need to give them all something to do, but it doesn't really matter. They don't need to even be there, so it just kind of feels like a distraction. So, anyways, the movie feels erratic. The movie feels overstuffed, and there's a lot of exposition. There's just so much exposition, so much explaining that needs to be done for all these characters and all these side quests and threads that it's just very exposition heavy, and a lot of the dialogue is just explaining what's happening, what's going on, and that gets tiresome. So it's strange how it happens. Like, the plot is actually simplistic. There's just a simple conflict between the bad guy and the good guys, but it's also so convoluted with all these other things going on that really don't amount to much. So it's like they water down these predictable formulas with pointless digressions. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds. Again, I think I've said that before in a previous review of another movie, but it's tough when the movie's both convoluted and simplistic. It's just not. It's a terrible combination. So, yeah, all this results in an underdeveloped villain and unearned arcs. The heroes, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith's characters, they both have these new internal dynamics that are both pretty interesting. I'm actually pretty pleased with what they were trying to do with those two characters, but there's not enough time to actually explore them, to really unpack them and make them feel significant. They just kind of set it up, abandon it for a while, and then pay it off later. So that just doesn't feel satisfying. Um, and meanwhile, the acting is all just kind of just cornered. They don't have a lot to work with, so no one really stands out besides Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence is just so funny. He's great in this. Rewatching the first Bad Boys from the '90s, I kind of felt him to be a little too much at times. But here, I think he's really matured into like knowing how to be mellow and when to kind of go over the top. Um, and he every time I laughed, every time I got any kind of emotional response from the movie, really, it was because of Lawrence. But everyone else is kind of just felt pretty bland. Honestly, they're all just kind of doing generic movie things. Even Will Smith, who is known for having a lot of natural charisma and he definitely has chemistry with Lawrence here. But even he is just kind of like just generic man, and that's that's pretty surprising. So, anyways, um, there's also a lot of reveals are really obvious. The protagonists are invincible, a lot of plot armor, and the movie's just there's a lot of cliches too. So overall, Ride or Die, its story is pretty tiresome, and there's not much to get out of it. The story is not the strength of this movie at all. It's the weakness. But technically, I think the movie is redeemable. Uh, there's a lot of energy in the technical aspects of this movie. Sometimes that helps lighten and distract from the messiness of the plot, but sometimes it also kind of exacerbates it. So the energy is like, okay, we're moving on, and we're just gonna ignore how pointless that was, and we'll just kind of have fun with it. And other times it's just so energetic and it's just kind of all over the place that it feels like I'm I'm kind of getting a headache. But the direction, it has moments of style, but I don't think it's very consistent. It kind of feels erratic there too, and also the tones I think are especially not great in this movie. It gets very self serious, and then the humor, just there's no connective tissue between those two things. Sometimes they really conflict and really undermine each other. Um, the editing is brisk but bloated, so it has a high pace and a short runtime, but also this clunky momentum and uneven structure. So it's weird how it's like a short movie and it's going fast, and I should feel like a breezy thing, but it's just so all over the place that uh, I was checking my watch from time to time. Honestly, pretty frequently actually. The production design has flavorful set pieces. There's a couple action sequences that are really stylized, but otherwise the movie's very sterile. Like their homes where they live just feel like generic IKEA sets, and it's just like, why is it so clean? Why is it so lacking personality? I have, their homes should kind of reflect the characters, right? But not in this movie. Um, the music is really weighed down by what I would say is forgettable scoring. They do the original theme. They kind of do renditions of it. They have some needle drops that are kind of funny, but for the most part, the music is just super duper bland, generic scoring, and I don't remember it at all. Um, the cinematography, I think, is has really flashy moments. With movement and angles and colors and focus. But it also gets pretty chaotic. Like the movement kind of becomes too much, and I'm kind of losing track of what's going on. It kind of becomes cluttered. Um, Shaky cam kind of is overdone. Um, and it's just like it's high energy, but sometimes that energy seems to lack purpose, in my opinion. So it kind of adds to the tiring nature of this movie. The sound design is good. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of emotional distortions like muffling and muting and echoes, things like that. And that's always great when they use the sound design to heighten what a character is feeling. Um, as far as the casting goes, uh, the original members, Lawrence and Smith, they are reliably famous and good fits and representation, but I'm disappointed by everyone around them. All the new blood, I feel like is largely not worth mentioning. I mean, they have Vanessa Hutchins, but do people care? And I would hope at this point they're kind of bringing in new up and comers to kind of maybe pass the franchise over to at some point, but um, there's no one here that I'm confident in that regard. So, anyways, all this is to say that Ride or Die has fun bits, but it's kind of buried in a muddled whole. It kind of feels like a soup where it has good and well done ingredients, but the soup as a whole kind of feels either bland or just clashing with itself. It's just too much going on. Um, I wouldn't say it's a bad movie, but I wouldn't say it's good either. I would kind of say it's okay. Maybe a guilty pleasure. I have no uh, feelings of wanting to revisit it. I didn't really like it personally. I don't think I'm just not a fan of movies that are so unfocused. I find them to be a bit more effort on my part than what I'm getting out of them. Um, but it's a fine movie, and I wouldn't turn anyone away if they're interested in it. If this is your kind of thing, I would say give it a shot. But also, the first Bad Boys is better in my opinion, even if the writing is. It's funny, the writing of these two movies are, to compare them for real quick. They're bad in different ways, but like good in different ways. And I think the first Bad Boys, while it lacks any kind of emotions at all, at least is very streamlined and is moving forward, and you know what's going on. And I think I would prefer that. But at the very least, the original Bad Boys is also just, I think, has better text. So, anyways, Ride or Die, okay movie. Check it out if you want. Don't if you don't want to. I'm not recommending it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. If you like what I'm doing here, please please feel free to like and subscribe. I also have an Instagram where you can follow me there. It's linked in the description. But at the very least, I appreciate you watching this, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye.